In the high desert of northern New Mexico, the earth burns red beneath the rising sun. Wind hums through cliffs that glow like embers, carrying the dry scent of dust and sage. This is Ghost Ranch, a land of silence and bone, where time itself seems fossilized from the air. Mesas and canyons form a labyrinth of color, iron red, ochre, and sand gold. But beneath the stillness lies something older than mountains, older than memory itself. Hidden in the cliffs are skeletons from an age before mammals, before flowers, before the world we know began. At dawn, the first light spills over the sandstone ridges, catching on fragments of quartz and bone. Ravens drift overhead. The ground seems to breathe. Even now, when a strong wind passes, the sand reveals shapes, ribs, vertebrae, impressions of vanished creatures. A century ago, this land rivaled the great fossil fields of Wyoming's Como Bluff and Colorado's Morrison Formation. Yet while those sites birthed legends like Apatosaurus and Triceratops, Ghost Ranch was left forgotten. Its fossils were too small, too fragile, too humble for the museums of the 19th century. So while the bone wars raged elsewhere, Ghost Ranch whispered to no one but the wind. At dusk, the desert glows violet and crimson. The rocks breathe out the day's heat. And beneath the shifting sand, the bones of a vanished world wait patient, eternal, and unheard. The first clues surfaced in the 1880s. Cowboys digging wells north of Abiquiu found strange, hollow bones in the sandstone. Some thought they were cattle remains turned to stone. Others joked they were lizard ghosts. A few samples reached the East Coast by train wrapped in newspaper, shipped with grain and salt. In New Haven and New York, curators glanced at them, puzzled. The bones were too small, too delicate, and came without skulls or labels. They were stored in drawers marked simply Triassic, New Mexico. At that time, American paleontology craved spectacle. Edward Drinker Cope and Othniel Charles Marsh battled for fame in Wyoming, unearthing gigantic skeletons that filled entire museum halls. Compared to the monstrous femurs of Diplodocus, the small bones from Ghost Ranch seemed trivial. By 1910, interest had faded completely. The quarry's coordinates were lost to locals. The place was just a dusty cattle trail haunted by coyotes. The fossils slept beneath the sun for another generation, waiting for the right eyes to find them again. In the 1930s, the land found a new guardian, Carol Stanley, a determined woman who transformed the ranch into a haven for artists and wanderers. Among them was Georgia O'Keeffe, whose paintings captured the haunting beauty of the red cliffs and bleached bones. Guests would often stumble upon fossils while hiking jawbones, vertebrae, even eggshell fragments. Most thought they were curiosities, souvenirs of a lost sea. But one passing geologist recognized their true value. He wrote to the American Museum of Natural History, describing a field of bones unlike any in the West. That letter landed on the desk of Dr. Edwin Colbert, one of the foremost dinosaur experts of the 20th century. Within months, Colbert and his students were heading west, their trucks loaded with plaster, picks, and dreams of discovery. When Colbert arrived in the summer of 1947, Ghost Ranch was alive with heat. The desert shimmered like glass. The cliffs towered above, layered in crimson and gold. The team set up camp beneath the escarpment, stringing canvas tarps between trucks for shade. Each morning began before dawn, coffee on campfires, the whir of cameras, the rhythmic sound of chisels tapping stone. By midday, the sun hit 110 degrees, and sweat turned the dust to clay on their skin. They gridded the sites into squares, labeling each bone by its position. Field notebooks filled with careful sketches, Colbert demanded precision from his students. "Every fossil," he said, "is a sentence in Earth's diary." Soon, bones began to surface in clusters, hundreds of them. It wasn't a scattering, it was a catastrophe frozen in rock. Entire skeletons of Coelophysis, a sleek, two-legged predator from 210 million years ago, were stacked together as if washed into one grave. Each skeleton was wrapped in wet plaster, mixed with horsehair, once hardened. These jackets were signed and numbered by Colbert himself. Trucks carried them to Santa Fe, where they were loaded onto trains bound for New York. The fossils of Ghost Ranch crossed a continent, bones of the desert, rolling east to meet the modern world. By the end of the dig, Colbert's crew had collected more than 1,000 skeletons, the largest single concentration of dinosaurs ever found. It was a triumph, but also a mystery. What disaster had buried an entire herd alive? Colbert's team believed drought was to blame. A dying herd gathered around the last puddles of a shrinking lake until a sudden flood smothered them in mud. For decades, that explanation endured. Then modern geology offered new answers. Traces of sulfur and volcanic ash hinted at deadly gases rising from the earth, an invisible suffocation. Others suspected algal blooms or poisoned water. One scenario imagines a quiet dawn 210 million years ago. Dozens of Coelophysis gather by a muddy pool. Steam rises from the surface as subterranean gases seep upward. Within minutes, oxygen vanishes. The first to fall are the smallest, the juveniles. The adults stumble, flail, collapse into the water. Mud swallows them whole, layer upon layer, until silence returns. When scientists examined the sediments decades later, they found fine laminations of clay and microscopic glass spheres, signs of chemical fallout, not floodwater. The ash matched nearby volcanic vents, proof that a poisonous eruption had suffocated life across the basin. Whatever the cause, the fossils captured not years, but hours of terror, an instant of extinction sealed forever in stone. Each skeleton lay twisted and overlapping, ribs flared, jaws open. It wasn't just death. It was panic, preserved. When the excitement faded, Ghost Ranch fell silent once more. The quarry eroded. Rain filled the old pits, and the wind erased the tracks of discovery. Thousands of fossils sat in museum basements labeled Ghost Ranch 947, untouched for decades. Inside the American Museum's lower vaults, shelves stretched like catacombs. Each plaster jacket bore Colbert's initials in faded ink. Over time, dust thickened on them, and the once bright field notes yellowed. Visitors rarely came down here. Yet one afternoon in 1978, a young technician named Helen Reinhardt opened one crate and found a forgotten field sketch, Colbert's original map of the quarry. In its margins, faint pencil lines revealed the exact coordinates of the site. Thought lost forever. By the late 1970s, paleontology itself was changing. New dating methods, isotope analysis, and microscopy rekindled interest in small fossils. When Colbert's map resurfaced, a new generation of scientists realized Ghost Ranch wasn't finished. It was simply waiting. Above ground, the desert reclaimed the past. Fences rotted, old shovels rusted under the sun. But in the museum's basement, the bones of Ghost Ranch began whispering again. Half a century later, technology brought the fossils back to life. Researchers reopened Colbert's crates, unwrapping the plaster jackets with surgical precision. Inside were bones so pristine they seemed sculpted yesterday. CT scanning revealed microscopic structures inside skulls and vertebrae, blood channels, air sacs, and bite marks invisible to the naked eye. 3D modeling software reconstructed entire skeletons, restoring muscle and posture. Then came the simulations, computer programs recreating how Coelophysis ran, hunted, and fed. Some scans revealed small bones inside adult rib cages. At first, scientists thought they were embryos, evidence of live birth. But the truth was darker. They were juvenile Coelophysis individuals, digested and broken. The sleek predator had eaten its own kind. Modern biomechanical tests simulated jaw force and running stride. proving that Coelophysis could sprint like a roadrunner and bite through bone with surgical precision. Using photogrammetry and digital terrain mapping, researchers recreated the entire Triassic floodplain, its ferns, horsetails, and shadowed lagoons. Through pixels and code, Ghost Ranch was reborn, a desert of silence turned into a world in motion. Every summer, new teams of students return to the desert to dig where Colbert once stood. They sleep in tents, eat canned beans, and spend dawn to dusk brushing away the Triassic dust. For them, this is not just science, it's pilgrimage. Old journals tell of nights when lightning storms tore through camp, when laughter echoed over the red rocks. One student wrote, "When you brush away a rib, you feel time pushing back." Among the modern teams is Dr. Allison James, who has led the Ghost Ranch Field School since 2005. She describes the desert as a living textbook of extinction and rebirth. Each season, her students learn not only technique, but humility. They wake to coyotes' cries and work until their hands tremble from heat. In the evenings, they gather around campfires, reading O'Keeffe's letters aloud beneath the same cliffs she painted. Nearby, the Ghost Ranch Museum of Paleontology now displays dozens of Coelophysis skeletons arranged in dynamic poses across sand-colored walls. Children trace the outlines of ancient bones, while volunteers explain how the quarry changed science forever. What began as Colbert's expedition has become a legacy of curiosity passed from one generation to the next. In 2006, beneath the old quarry, researchers uncovered something unexpected. A skeleton shaped like a dinosaur, but with a crocodile's skull. It was named Effigia O'Keeffiae, honoring Georgia O'Keeffe herself. At first glance, Effigia looked like a small theropod, long legs, light frame, fast stride. But CT scans told another tale. Its ankle joint and pelvic bone belonged to the crocodile line of evolution, not the dinosaur branch. Scientists realized they had found a Crurotarsan, a creature from a parallel lineage that evolved to look like its rival. Its spine was light and hollow, like a bird's, its lungs efficient, its stride bipedal. It was a mirror evolution, proof that nature repeats good designs. The discovery rewrote the evolutionary tree. It showed that during the Triassic, the crocodile family nearly conquered the world. For a moment in history, their reign and that of the dinosaurs overlapped two empires sharing one red desert. In the elegant curve of Effigia's neck, in the slender bones of its feet, lies a haunting possibility if fate had tilted slightly differently. It might have been the crocodile's descendants, not the dinosaurs that evolved into the rulers of the skies. Today, Ghost Ranch stands quiet again. The cliffs still glow at sunset, and the wind still hums through the canyons. The fossils remain, locked in their silent layers, reminders of life's resilience and fragility. Scientists, artists, and wanderers still come not to conquer, but to listen. They kneel beside old quarries, tracing grid lines from Colbert's maps, feeling history beneath their hands. At dusk, the desert breathes, and the shadows stretch like memories. Every bone here tells a story not just of death, but of survival through time. Ghost Ranch reminds us that discovery is never finished. The earth is still speaking, and somewhere beneath the red desert, the next story of evolution waits to be found. The bones of Ghost Ranch are not gone. They are waiting patient as the desert for the next dreamer to listen.